For the meeting of the Select Board of June 18, 2019. Let's see. Any announcements from members of the board?
Sure. Let's see, tomorrow, Wednesday, June 19th, there is an event which is hosted by Brookline's Office of Diversity and Inclusion and Community Relations. It is called Exploring Gender Diversity. It's a panel discussion led by the organization Speak Out. It is free and open to all, and there will be light refreshments. It's going to be from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. Right here in Town Hall, room 103. I plan to be there, and I hope others can join as well.
Good, thank you. Any announcements?
I
Ms.
think there's a
Hamilton?
community forum that's sponsored by the Brookline Police Department. For more information, I would visit their website. I think it's going to be around 6 p.m. tomorrow
Yeah,
evening.
It's the community, what's it called?
Roll call.
Roll call. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'll make an announcement. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, there was a tragedy in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where several municipal employees for the city were killed. And we're doing a donation to the Victims Fund, the official Victims Fund. Department heads are donating. So if you have any interest in that, maybe talk to Patty in my office. She's coordinating that.
Do you have a copy of the proclamation? Okay, any public comments, Mr. Conquest?
Just have to get my glasses, okay? I'm not as young as I used to be.
Here's the original. We're doing that.
Good evening, Arthur Conquest, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. 11th of June, 2019, you announced that the town of Brookline would be hiring Natasha Tidwell as an outside legal advisor. She's going to be giving the select board, as I understand it, and I quote, "an outside and fresh view about where we're going with respect to racial issues," unquote, that have engulfed parts of Brookline town government and its community for going on almost 3.5 decades. Hiring an outsider, I think, is a step in the right direction. I do have some concerns, however. The curious person that I am, I Googled Mrs. Tidwell, and a number of Boston Globe articles came up, one of which said that she works for the global law firm of Hogan Lovells, along with attorneys Anthony Fuller and Jody Newman, which is based in Boston. There was a picture accompanying the article that included all three of the aforementioned attorneys. The first awkward conclusion I drew is that Attorney Newman is the wife of Marty Rosenthal, town meeting member from Precinct 9 and a member of the Committee on Town Organization and Structure and co-chair of the political group PAX. Is this a common practice, hiring a person as a consultant that is employed in the same company where a town meeting member's wife also works, especially in such a sensitive area as race and racism? As a town meeting member, I'd like to know, if it's possible, what are the specific terms of the contract of Mrs. Tidwell? Have you hired her individually, or have you hired the aforementioned firm of Hogan Lovells? And what exactly are the financial terms of Mrs. Tidwell's contract with Brookline? Is it 1 year, 1 month, 1 week, 6 days, or 25 hours? I've been a town meeting member for 2 decades, and I've been privy to I don't know how many commissions, committees, investigations, negotiations, as well as decisions involving race and racism where Marty Rosenthal has been one of the principal participants. The ink is dry on Mrs. Tidwell's contract, but I think there needs to be a brighter light fixed on exactly where we are going and how exactly Mrs. Tidwell is going to get there. Thank you. I don't expect you to answer now, but at some point.
We can consider that a public records request, and we'll provide you information.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Next is approval of minutes of May. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Murphy.
Maybe I can get some answers here. I'm Scott Murphy. I raised my kids in this town for 25 years. Actually, it'll be Ayla's birthday, who spoke before the selectmen and the town meeting. Remember, some years back, it'll be her 25th birthday, July 2nd. Carson is 20 and concerned. But anyway, I ask about, if you can look into, and I've asked, I think all of you have been asked, to the no trespassing order in its various forms and incantations that was issued against me. And a couple of questions. Why is it still in place? What's the reason? And does a principal at a K through 8 have the ability to usurp all U.S. constitutional rights? And if so, what is the process and what is the review process? As a public record request, I'd like for all documents related to that NTO, all versions of it, going back to 2010, which is the part that's still outstanding, given and circulated to both the selectmen, all the Board of Selectmen, and all the school committee members. I don't understand it. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, question of approving the minutes of May 23rd, 2019. Any edits or comments from members of the board? Okay. Move approval of the minutes of May 23rd, 2019. Mr. Franco.
Aye.
Ms. Heller.
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, next is a question of adopting a proclamation acknowledging New Paris Bakery on their 100th anniversary. This is a bakery here in Brookline that serves delicious eclairs. I'm sure they serve other really delicious stuff, but I pigged out on the eclairs one day. So let me read the resolution, and we will have it signed and framed for you, and we'll deliver it to New Paris Bakery, Ms. Kappas. So, okay. Resolution of the Brookline Select Board recognizing 100 years in Brookline of the New Paris Classic French Patisserie and the contribution of Rula Kappas and her late husband, Jimmy Kappas, to Brookline's enjoyment of classic French pastries. Whereas Rula Kappas is the owner of the New Paris Bakery at 10 Cypress Street, Brookline, which she and her late husband, Jimmy Kappas, owned for many years in Brookline. Whereas the history of New Paris Bakery goes back to 1919, when a Greek immigrant, Cosmos Constantine George, working at a bakery in France, decided to come to Boston and establish a pastry shop in Brookline at the original location of 407 Boylston Street, which then moved to its current location in 1929. Whereas on Sunday, June 2nd, 2019, New Paris Bakery welcomed over 300 customers and friends from far and wide into the bakery to celebrate 100 years of making delicious and widely loved eclairs, cookies, and candy in a shop that has an old-fashioned feel, selling its goods in glass and wood cases. Whereas many customers have been coming to New Paris Bakery for generations, and even the celebrated chef Jacques Papin dropped in one day and took home a dozen eclairs. Whereas New Paris Bakery has resisted changes to its classic style and classic pastries, such as its famous eclairs, and has become more than just a bakery, but a valued community institution and a staple of the Brookline small business community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Brookline Select Board, on behalf of the residents of the town of Brookline, Massachusetts, with great appreciation for her contributions to Brookline hereby congratulates Rula Kappas, owner of the New Paris Bakery, on the 100th anniversary of New Paris Bakery's operation in Brookline. Be it further resolved that the Brookline Select Board, on behalf of the residents of the town of Brookline, Massachusetts, recognizes and celebrates the delicious eclairs, cookies, and candies that are made by hand in the classic French fashion at the New Paris Bakery. And be it further resolved that the Brookline Select Board, on behalf of the residents of the town of Brookline, Massachusetts, join the many customers and friends of Rula Kappas in honoring the memory and spirit of Jimmy Kappas, Rula Kappas's late husband. Signed by the Select Board and attested by Town Administrator. So, Ms. Kappas, congratulations, and thank you for all the work you've done to satisfy our sweet teeth here in Brookline. So. Sure. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Great. Sure. Why don't we come around in front?
I have no guarantees. I will try. We got one more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we will open this to see what's in it after the meeting.
You're going to test it, make sure it's safe.
Okay. Next, question of approving and executing a contract amendment with William Moran Associates in the credit amount of $18,253 in connection with the Brookline High School expansion project. Yes, Mr. Masick.
Ray Masak, Building Department. There are two components to this amendment. The first component was William Ron Associates tried to negotiate a contract with Source One, which was our utility expediter, and we're not able to come to terms. So we're moving that scope of work to our owner's project manager, Hill International, which is the next item on our on the agenda, and as well as there was additional costs for doing the survey and easement drawings for the license with the MBTA. So that's two components. So the total is a credit.
Right. Any questions? And Sally, anything to add to that?
Pardon me?
Do you have anything to add to that?
No,
It's at
I don't.
Brookline
I
High
mean, it's
School.
just, kind of a regular amount of work that has to go on. Luckily, this is a credit, which is always nice, rather than an add-on, and except that we are going to spend the money, so.
Yeah, good.
That is correct.
Okay, move approval of the credit amount. Mr. Franco.
Aye.
Ms. Heller.
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton.
Aye.
Ms. Fernandez.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Next, question of approving a contract amendment with Hill International in the amount of $26,000 for additional services, again, related to the Brookline High School expansion project. Mr. Mason.
Yes, Ray Masak, Building Department. This is just moving the services from William Ron Associates to Hill International. These services are dearly needed. The utility expediter will be expediting all the utility work orders, which are very numerous for this project.
Any questions?
No, but just a comment that it is it's tough to negotiate with these utilities and get things done in a timely manner. And it's really helpful to have somebody who's on the case full-time, pretty much.
That's correct.
So basically, that's what we're paying for, and it keeps us on schedule and hopefully on budget as well. And so I'm all for it.
Okay, I'll move approval of the Brookline High School expansion project for additional services. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Hetler?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. You still up there?
I am.
Question of approving a change order in the amount of $19,049 with Cal Hess Restoration and Waterproofing Corp. in connection with Brookline Reservoir Gatehouse Exterior Restoration Project.
This is part of the park project. The gatehouse is on Route 9, and we're restoring the outside by repointing. And these were 4 additional items that we noted when we were doing the work. The bids came in less, and we have a grant through the Mass Historical Society, so up through $100,000, they'll give us half. So I think the bid, let me just make sure I get that.
Ms. Frawley, could you not make noise of the paper? It's being picked up by the TV cameras.
So the bid was $79,500, and this puts us slightly below 90. This is $98,549. And like I said, anything up through $100,000 will be. We have a grant for 50%, so half of this change order will be paid for by Mass Historical.
Great. Is there anyone, is Ann Blair in the audience?
Yes.
Okay. Did you want to talk about the trees?
She's going to do that in the next, on the next
Okay, I'm sorry.
item, right?
Okay.
Yes, we're both.
Oh, you're both, oh, sorry.
We're both
yes.
part of
Yeah,
the
Annie will do
Reservoir
that.
Gatehouse, and
Yeah.
then we're going to talk about
Okay,
amending
yeah, you're right.
our grant.
Okay. Move approval of the Brookline Reservoir Gatehouse Exterior Restoration Project in the amount of $19,049. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Question of approving change order number 1 with
Are you going to do that now? Did you want to do an update on the reservoir project now? Is that the idea?
That's up to you.
You did see in your packet a review of the project. I know there's been a lot of public concern about the project and some unawareness of what's going on, and we thought it would be appropriate to give the public and the board a little quick update. And Annie Blair, from our department, is here.
And what Mr. Collector is referring to is a memo in our packet that is a summary of, or an update of the Brookline Reservoir project. That will be online at the Park and Recreation Commission, or Park Department website, not immediately, but soon.
We actually put it up there tonight.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So I'm Annie Blair, landscape architect with the Parks and Open Space Division, and I've been working with Jay Hersey, the resident engineer from Engineering and Transportation, on the park project and the gatehouse improvements. And I'm going to focus on tree removals, dewatering of the basin, and the condition of the fish, since they seem to be the hot topics right now, based on phone calls that I've been getting. So the tree removals have almost entirely been completed. We have a few more to do. And the long and short of it is we've been in conversation with the state's Office of Dam Safety for 5 or 6 years, because the state policy is complete removal of trees and shrubs on top of dam structures for safety reasons. They want to be able to visually inspect the condition of the dam on a regular basis to see if there are any signs of change or deterioration. They also want to discourage any kind of burrowing animals or tree failures. So for instance, if a large tree failed and fell over and took a large root system with it, that could potentially create a breach in the dam. So, of course, there was a lot of pushback, And we reached an understanding with the Office of Dam Safety that we would take down a good number of trees on the dam structure itself, which is about 40% of the perimeter of the property, but keep cherry trees that are in good condition, that are above the water level, so that if they fell over, there wouldn't necessarily be a release of water. And because of the topography and the fact that, for the most part, Route 9 goes downhill towards the Longwood Medical Area, and there are a lot of people and property structures along that route, it was prudent to do this, even though it was difficult. So that's where the tree removal stand will be replacing a good number of trees elsewhere in the park to create more of an arboretum feel with a greater variety of trees for seasonal interest and some learning opportunities as well. Excuse me. So we've been dewatering the basin, and right now about 50% of the basin has water in it, ranging from about 2 inches to 8 feet. And the reason that we've done that is to provide a safe and dry working environment for the valve improvements that are going to be made inside the building. The gatehouse was built in 1848. It's been a while since, well, actually the turn of the 20th century, since it was used as a public water supply. And the gates have grown sort of locked in a partially open position or a shut position. We're going to take 2 of the 3 valves out of commission and make the valve that's remaining fully operable. And in order to do that, we've had to send divers down. And the last thing that we wanted was for them to be in an unsafe condition. So I know that people have been concerned about the fish. There are a good number of fish in the reservoir. We think that some of them are now in Leverett Pond because when we dewatered and let the water flow away from the reservoir, it released into Leverett Pond. We've seen 11 dead fish so far. Jay Hersey's been out there every day keeping an eye on what's left in there. And most of those 11 fish were crappies, which I understand often die after they've spawned at this time of year. He's been in contact with the state's Fisheries and Wildlife Division. And then we've seen more shorebirds, more waterfowl, which I think are having a feast day out there because it's easier to get the fish because it's not as deep. Are there any questions about this?
Yeah, well, it's very sad to see it stripped, denuded, if you will.
It is.
But I think once you get done with the project, it will look better. I didn't realize, and I think maybe most of the public didn't realize, that this was actually a working dam. Is that correct?
Well, it's a working dam in that it retains the water. It's not a working reservoir. It was built to supply water as part of the Cochituate Aqueduct in 1848, and it was built to supply water to Boston. So it was initially owned by Boston. By 1898, it wasn't supplying the capacity that Boston needed, and it was taken offline. And there was a corresponding reservoir on Beacon Hill that was also taken offline and no longer exists. So we're lucky to have this.
So there are pipes between the reservoir and Leverett Pond?
Yep.
So the fish went through the pipes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh, we think the fish went through the pipes. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so when do we expect to see the park kind of back open for the public?
Oh, that's a painful question. The answer will be painful.
Yeah, next spring.
Okay.
Yep. And the water in the basin will be restored. The state's going to come back and restock the basin with fish. You know, by that point, the planting should be pretty well established. So we're looking forward to that.
Any other questions? Well, thank you.
I just had one other question. So this is partially funded by the state and partially funded by Brookline?
It is. We have a $400,000 state grant from the EOEEA as part of their dam protection program. We have the 50,000 plus, which is in a couple of items down the agenda, from the Massachusetts Preservation Project Fund.
And how much do you estimate the total cost will be?
I think it's 3.3 million.
Well,
And that includes the gatehouse. We have a future project in the gatehouse as well, as part of this overall effort to install a restroom inside the gatehouse that would be available during park hours.
Comfort station, I think you've called it. Is that
Yep.
correct? Okay.
Thank you. It's
Welcome.
very, this is a project that is necessary because it is a so-called dam. But it's still very difficult to see the removal of trees from that beautiful park. And I'm urging you to make sure that when we restore the park to a park condition, that you maintain the beauty, or you ensure that the beauty that it had before is continued in terms of plantings as well as other landscape amenities. So,
That's certainly our intent.
I mean, I think people in Brookline really are concerned about that, and it's important that they have updated information on what's going on there, and when we can get back to walking around the reservoir and enjoying that park. So I'm glad to hear that it's the spring of 2020. I had originally thought that it was the end of the construction period of 2020, which would be much later. So,
Right, right.
Good.
One other question, I'm sorry. The benches, there are innumerable benches there, and people have asked me what's happening to those, and I assume they're going back in their
They are,
positions.
we've removed them and taken them to our shop, and they're being refurbished. So they're getting replacement wood slats where they need it. Where they don't need to be replaced, they're being sanded and treated. And then the donor plaques are going back on. There are some bench pads that have been left in place, concrete bench pads. There are some that had sort of lifted up, so they were no longer handicap accessible, and they're being replaced.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
So next, question of approving change order number 1 with J.J. Cardozi in the amount of $47,900 in connection with Fire Station number 6, Fleet Maintenance and Training Facility. Mr. Masek, again.
When the new fire chief came on board, he drove around the Rotary and drove into the one driveway into Fire Station 6. So anybody that knows, driving into that driveway, it's very narrow, and it's a two-way driveway. The chief was very tenacious. They said this couldn't be funded as part of the project, and that the architect really couldn't design it. He got the DPW to put in the engineering effort, and then we put it back with J.J. Cardozi because he's on site, and asked him to price it. He gave us a fair price. And this is in fact to add another driveway, which will really help with the in and out movement of the fire trucks and cars in general.
Okay, any questions?
That's change order 2.
I'm sorry.
Change order 2.
Oh,
That's a
it's
mistake on the agenda.
Okay. Change order 2. So, move approval of change order number 2 with J.J. Cardozi in the amount of $47,900 in connection with Fire Station number 6, Fleet Maintenance and Training Facility. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Next, question of approving a contract amendment in the amount of $28,700 in connection with a grant agreement with the Massachusetts Historical Commission for the Brookline Reservoir Gatehouse. Ms.
Annie
Blair.
Blair again. It's actually a contract amendment in the value of $4,100. So Ray talked about this series of additional work items that brought us up to just under $100,000. There's an additional work item for window restoration on the Warren Street side of the gatehouse, which will have a big visual impact. And that's an additional amount of money that will bring us up to $108,200. So that brings us $8,200 over our original $100,000. And Mass Historical Commission will share in that with us at 50%. So their share is $4,100, and that's what's reflected in the contract amendment.
Okay, any questions? No? Move approval. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So, we're down here? Okay. Okay, so that's going away.
I believe we just voted on 7G on calendar number
Okay,
2.
okay.
This is the old one.
Yeah, I got my notes from here. Okay, question of approving the following 2 Chapter 90 reimbursement requests. 1, in the amount of $29,756.80 for a reimbursement related to contract PW 1903, rectangular rapid flash beacons on Beacon Street at Winthrop, and in the amount, and a reimbursement request in the amount of $393,447.01 for a reimbursement related to contract PW 1825, reconstruction of Babcock Street. Mr. Ditto.
Good evening. So this is a housekeeping issue. We're looking for 2 reimbursement requests, approvals from MassDOT. And the first one is for the rapid flashing barricade out on Beacon Street at Winthrop Road. That project is complete, so this reimbursement request of $29,756.80 is for the total project. The second project, reconstruction of Babcock Street, where the request is for $393,447.03. That project is still active. We're about 85% complete, and we're waiting for National Grid to get out of the section of Babcock Street from Harvard to John Street. So they're still working in there, and we have to wait till they clear out. And we anticipate in completing this project in the fall.
Okay, any questions? You can vote these together, right? Sure. Okay. So, move approval of 2 Chapter 90 reimbursement requests in the amount of, first one, $29,756.80. Second one, in the amount of $393,447.01. You said 03. Is it 3 cents or 1 cent?
Big difference.
The paperwork says 1 cent.
Yeah,
so I
okay.
think-
1 cent.
Okay.
Yep.
So, move approval. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next, question of approving an insert in the next tax bill regarding the community aggregation program. Ms. Heller, do you want to
Yeah.
talk about that?
So you remember that we approved engaging with Newton in a competition to see which community can register the greater percentage of opt up to 100% green electricity customers. So I've been working with some of the people who have volunteered to work on this project in Brookline, and we're planning to engage in a campaign, if you will, with some signs and buttons and do some canvassing around this, but we're also wanting to insert information about it in the upcoming tax bill. And I've worked with Gina Ranconi, our treasurer, on this issue, and she's on board. And now we have a PDF, which has been produced by Good Energy, the broker that has been working with us on this issue. And we're set to go with your approval. This is what, I'll pass you each copy. The wording is not correct. I've taken this was the initial brochure we did when we started the program, but the layout is very similar. What we did was we took this brochure and we updated it for the current situation. That is in a black and white version that was in your packet, labeled 7I, front and back. I expect it to be this size, which is a third of a piece of paper, and it will be less cardboardy and more lightweight in order to keep postage down. But for the door knockers, it will be like this, more like a palm card. So I would ask you to approve the insertion of this in the next tax bill, and it's about the community aggregation program.
So this is something that state law allows us to do, provided that the select board approves it. So we're asking approval right now. Any questions? Ms. Hamilton?
Sorry, I just put a piece of chocolate in my
Did you go
mouth.
into our eclair
No,
box?
I did not. I brought my own. Does everybody get their tax bill hard copy, or are any sent electronically? Like, how might we capture those customers with this?
I don't know the answer. I think most people get it hard copy, but
I believe it is mailed to
I
everyone.
think it's a state law, probably, is my guess.
I mean, you can pay them online without the benefit of sending in a payment in the mail, but I believe all of them must be mailed by
Okay.
first-class mail.
I just didn't want anyone to not receive this critical information.
Anyone who's our vast TV audience out there and our vast live audience here, if you want to opt up, all you need to do is go to brooklinegreen.com, and that will take you to the official brooklinema.gov page with all of the information, and it's pretty clear. It tells you how to do it. You need to have your electric bill in hand, and you can just opt up with your electric account number. So that's how to do it. As I say, the bill will be going out very soon, so it's appropriate for us to approve it now. And this campaign, while we originally thought that we might be able to do it by July 4th, that's not going to happen. So it's dragging on and probably go through the end of the calendar year.
Okay, any other questions?
Just a question, is there a cost to the town for including inserts in the tax bill? If so, what was it?
Well, the law says that you may not increase the cost of the mailing, so, I think this will be fine. It does have to be printed, and that's regardless, I think, whether it goes in the...
Right. Ms. Ranconi told me she did not, see, as long as it wasn't cardboard and a hard, increasing the postage, she didn't foresee that it would increase the bill.
It's
The-
printed
the-
down in our print shop.
Yeah, it's printed at
Printed
the
in-house.
town's print shop. Right.
Great.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, move approval of the insert in the next tax bill regarding community aggregation program. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Next, a question of approving a transfer within the town clerk's appropriation from professional technical of $2,500 to meals and reception, $2,500.
Are you planning a
Ward.
party?
Are we invited?
You already had the party.
It was all those purchases at New Paris. Now, the reason why we're before you tonight is because we just overspent with regards to meals and receptions. Part of it is because it falls under the 53 umbrella, so 1,000 of that is actually an overrun from supplies. that fed into that, excuse the pun, that fed into that account. But we still over budgeted because of, we had essentially 3 elections and 11 days of early voting that we paid on each and every day. Each election, we employed probably over 150 people. And then on early voting, we probably fed, I don't know, probably a good 30 people each day. So it was a little bit more than what we anticipated. And that, including the overage from the supplies, we found ourselves in a hole, and that's why we're coming here for an interdepartmental transfer.
Any question? Very important expenditure for people who do important work for our elections.
Thank you.
And, maybe not always understood or appreciated, but it's very, very important. So, I don't think we should have any complaints about paying this type of expense.
And they're paid modestly, too, but they continue to come year after year, which is great.
Well, if you remember too, the town administrator recommended in the budget this year to increase their salaries because we were falling behind. We were probably about 15th in the state, and now we're on an average, and now that's been increased. So it's hard though. It's hard to keep good workers, and so we have a lot of new faces every year, but we still get the job done, and we're in competition with everybody else for good workers.
Right.
Yeah. And this is for meals and receptions, not pay.
Yeah, it's less receptions than
Okay.
meals. I mean, meals and receptions is the budget title.
Yeah.
It's all basically election meals.
Yeah, okay. Okay, move approval. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Question of approving the following transfer within the police department appropriation from we're going out of order. From public safety supplies, $12,900, to gasoline, $12,900, and from communications, $13,250, to electricity, $12,000, professional and technical, $250, wireless communication, $1,000. Mr. Maskell.
Good evening. This transfer is basically to support our year-end gasoline, electricity, and diesel expenses.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, move approval of the transfers within the police department appropriation. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we jumped out of order, so we have to go back in order. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 temporary licenses, which I'm going to do in together. Yeah, omnibus fashion. First, Pine Manor College, Sunday, August 25th, 2019, for a wedding. Second, Pine Manor College, September 1st, 2019, for a wedding. Third, Pine Manor College, September 21st, 2019, for a wedding. And Pine Manor College, September 28th, 2019, also for a wedding. Any questions? They've been approved by the police, right?
The police department has reviewed the applications and sees no reason to deny them.
Right. Okay. Any questions?
I'll just say thank you for getting your applications in so early, since we are about to go on summer schedule.
Right. Okay. And September 1st is my wedding anniversary. I wonder if someone's planning a surprise party for me. Unlikely. But, okay, move approval. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Ms. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay, question approving the application for an entertainment license amendment to add karaoke to existing license for Gin Brookline, Inc., doing business as Jin's Fine Asian Cuisine, sushi bar at 329 Harvard Street, currently a holder of an all kinds common victualler license. They don't have to appear, I assume. Okay, any questions?
I think this is the only karaoke In town?
Yeah.
No?
Oh, really? Okay.
So this appears to be just on Thursdays from 9 PM to midnight. I don't know exactly where the address is, but I think we should, it depends, it's a Thursday night, so.
It's next to Zaftig's. It's in that area.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So there's no residential properties around it.
Well, we
as I
said that in
understand.
Washington Street, it turned out not to be true,
Really?
so I'm
Does
just
anyone-
being cautious.
Okay, I only go in the front door. Does anyone know what's behind it?
Yeah, it's right next to Coolidge Corner School. HealthWorks is above it, and
Yeah.
So karaoke is not a very loud entertainment.
Well, hopefully they'll keep the doors and windows closed.
Okay, yeah.
I will say that they've got an existing entertainment license, and the police department in their memo says that they've received no complaints, there have been no issues with the establishment to this date. So I think we'll just keep an eye on it, as we do all licensed establishments, and as necessary, engage in conversations.
Yeah. It's a very credible restaurant, so I don't anticipate any problems. I move approval. Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Say we do a team building exercise next Thursday at Jen's.
No, you don't want me singing. Okay, question of authorizing the filling of the following vacancies within the building department. Energy Management System Specialist, Electrical Inspector, Local Building Inspector. Mr. Bennett.
Good evening. So yes, we have three vacancies, or actually, yeah, three vacancies. One's a new position. The Energy Management Systems Specialist is a new position. It was recommended by the Matrix report. They will assist the Energy Management Systems Manager in, this is essentially the operation of all of our heating, locks, air conditioning in all town buildings. This person will assist the manager in the day-to-day operations, scheduling, troubleshooting, and other, functions as needed. We worked with HR to get the job description, a proper pay, a salary range, and we're looking to fill that position, and it is funded.
And in seeking out applicants, you will make an extra special effort to make sure that the applicant pool is as diverse as is appropriate, given where we live here in
Yes, yeah.
Boston area.
With all the positions and the others that I've been filling, we do work with HR, looking for that diverse applicant pool. We look at the trade organizations, we look at the, in this instance, there's a facilities organization that we'll reach out to try to pull in candidates. With some of the other positions that you'll hear about in a minute, local inspector, there's 3 or 4 organizations across the state, so we'll do our best to reach as broad an applicant pool and diverse an applicant pool as we can.
Great. Any questions? Move approval, Mr. Franco.
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton, I'm sorry, Ms. Heller.
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay.
The electrical inspector, that's a retirement. Ted Steverman has been with the town for 31 years, and he did indicate his retirement at the end of the month, and we're actively searching for his replacement. We already have a lot of interest from word of mouth and some preliminary, outreach, so we'll see. Hopefully we can fill that quickly. That's a one-person position. He does have a deputy, but we need that filled as soon as possible, so we're working very aggressively on that.
Okay.
So what will happen to projects in the meantime without an electrical inspector?
We have a deputy that's going to cover.
Oh,
He'll
I see.
cover for
Okay.
us in the meantime, yes.
Great.
Okay, any other questions?
A simply comment, it's an end of an era.
There's a lot of
Feel like
long-time
Teddy's been here
building
forever.
personnel that's retiring, yes.
Teddy, feels like Teddy's been here forever,
Well,
certainly.
he has, he grew up in town, lives in town, and,
Yeah.
yeah, he's been
He's a great guy, yeah.
a fixture.
Okay.
No
So-
pun intended.
It was intended.
Okay, move approval, electrical inspector, Mr. Franco?
Aye.
And Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. And then final local building inspector.
Local inspector, the most recent departure was Dan Weber. He and his fiancee chose to relocate to Portland, Maine. So he did give me some indication that this was happening. It was a little quicker than, I had thought. So we are actively, searching there. We've got many openings that we're looking to fill, and we've got some verbal offers out to a few candidates already for the local. We've got 3 positions open there.
Good. Any questions?
I have a quick question regarding building inspection and Select Board Member Heller's comments. Maybe think about this. I'm thinking back to sort of the facade collapse over by couples, and I know that's happened in Boston as well. And are we sort of on top of that? Are we sort of checking those? I mean, those are really dangerous situations, and just making sure also that we're covered in the interim. But I just wanted sort of just an update on how we're doing there.
Yeah, so as a result of that instance, I know previously you talked about some tax inserts. So I did work with Gina Franconi, and we did put an insert in all the taxes, on all the tax mailings, that pretty much identified what the responsibility was if you own a multifamily dwelling. We talked about inspections, we talked about facade inspections. We implemented a new facade inspection as part of that process. It worked very well. We probably got over 300 or 325 responses, which was much greater than I thought. So that's worked out well. We're actively doing those inspections. My next step would be to notify the management companies in Brookline and surrounding towns, because they're also a part of their responsibility for these condo associations and other facilities, is to make sure that those inspections and that the facilities are in good order. So that would be my next step, and that will bring in hopefully more inspections. So we are on top of it. It is an ongoing thing, and we try to do as much outreach as we can.
Great, glad to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, move approval, Mr. Franco.
Aye.
Ms. Heller.
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some boards and commissions interviews. First, the Indigenous Peoples Celebration Day Committee, Felina Silver Robinson.
Good evening.
Good evening. Introduce yourself and tell us why you want to be on this committee.
Hi, my name is Felina Silver Robinson. I lived in the town of
By
Brookline.
the way, could you speak directly into the mic?
Sorry, first time. My name is Felina Silver Robinson. I've lived here in Brookline my entire life, well, minus the first 3 years. Growing up, I told a story of my mom who came to Boston when she herself was 16. She had her hair down to her ankles, and at that time, it was in the 60s when people of her kind were just coming around to Boston. And she was told when she got her job that if she wanted to fit in and not be judged, that she should cut her hair. So she cut her hair down to her shoulders, or yes, up to her shoulders. And before having come here, at some time down her pathway, her family's name was changed. I don't know what it was in the beginning, but it became Silver. So that's my middle name, Silver. Growing up as a kid, I didn't really know anyone that was Native. So I sort of felt isolated in a way. My mother didn't speak too much of our heritage, and I don't know if she was ashamed or what, but she also never took us to a powwow. So still at my age of 56, I have yet to have gone to a powwow. some of that is my own fault, but I think that, you know, when you don't have something, you don't go for it. If it had been given to me, I'm sure I would have gotten into the habit of doing it. I don't want other kids to grow up feeling like they should be ashamed of who they are. I want to be able to educate other people to allow their children to feel like they should be proud of who they are and where they came from. I have a daughter of my own who had spearheaded the efforts at the high school to have the Native American chief head taken off the parquet floor. I don't know if any of you recall that having happened, but I supported her full-heartedly of that effort, for which she had a lot of scrutiny upon her. People were very mean to her, made threats to her for something that she stood up for. I've never believed that anyone of any race should ever feel bad for who they are or where they come from. And the only way that happens is if people are educated and they understand and they know more about who people are and where they come from, and that they are just like anyone else. There's nothing to be afraid of, you know, and without understanding that, without parents teaching their kids from the beginning that we're all the same, then none of that will happen. So I want to be here to help make sure that that happens here in our town.
Any questions?
I think you make a very good point about parents teaching their children. I think that point was made in the Rogers and Hammerstein version of South Pacific. You've got to be taught to love and to hate. And I think it's very important that we do teach our children to respect people of different cultures. How do you see this committee operating, and do you have a vision of when your first event would be and what it would consist of?
I attended my first meeting on June 4th, and they were well in the way of preparing for the upcoming Indigenous Peoples Day event. They have already spoken to performers and speakers. At my suggestion, we were also hoping to consider, but having to check on what the laws are for our town, seeing whether or not we could have people come to sell their handmade goods, products. But again, we don't know what the rules are for that, and we have to check into that. So I said that if we want to draw the crowds that other cities and towns have, we need to do some of the same things that they're doing. And that's something that they do, along with having some of the food that people are accustomed to having. So it looks like it's well underway, and I'm sure that everything will go off quite well.
I'm sure there's no impediment to having people come and sell, their goods, food, as well as other things that they make. You just have to go through the steps of application, and you can come to the select board and find out what those steps are.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay.
How did you hear about the opening?
Actually, a neighbor of mine had suggested me because she knew that my mom was Native American, and she knew of what my daughter's efforts were, and thought that I had a good voice to speak out and that I could be someone to be pushy and get things done. And so I hope she's right. I believe she is.
Yeah, I just wanted to add and I'll be on this committee as well.
Yay.
And so one of the things that I'm thinking about is, in addition to celebration and things like food and crafts, also around education and not education solely historically about Indigenous people, but of Indigenous people today, and thinking about what the responsibility of towns like Brookline is to addressing, frankly, some of the atrocities that have happened over many years in this country. And I hope that as part of this celebration, as it's called, we also are addressing some of those issues.
I had brought that up as well. So I'm hoping that we can find the right things to put out there for people to see and or read, linkage to other information that people might want to see, books to read, movies to watch. And I came across some things that teachers, if we get to that point, might want to use in helping teach children. There's so much information out there, it's just what we decide that should be put forth. So we've just got to look at it as a team and make those decisions. If you make me a part of it.
Yeah, right.
So we will not be voting tonight, but at some time in the future. And thank you for your interest in the committee.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So next, Advisory Council on Public Health. First, Laurie Abrams-Berry.
She's withdrawn her application.
Oh, sorry. David Hemingway. Yes, Mr. Hemingway.
Hello.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the council.
So I've been a Brookline resident since 1981. I'm a professor in public health at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. I've done lots of work about injury prevention, from motor vehicle crashes and bicycle injuries to a lot of violence prevention efforts. And I know just from teaching at the school since 1975 a lot about public health. And the big reason I want to be on the advisory committee is because Swanee Jet asked me to be because he thought I could help him.
That's the only reason?
That's the big reason, and because I think I could help him.
Okay. Why don't you tell us what you, first of all, what does the advisory council do? The website doesn't really tell us.
Yeah, I don't know. I have not been on the committee.
So
yet.
I assume advise on things like
I
tobacco
guess so,
usage
but
and-
I can't tell you
Okay.
what it does yet. I assume it advises.
So you mentioned a lot about injury or injury and violence prevention.
Yes.
How do you see your role in terms of those two issues in particular as they relate to Brookline?
Yeah, so what I think I'll be able to do is provide information about what we know from the science rather than what people think they know or what people see from individual anecdotes. Is what I can bring is here's what scientific studies have shown, here's what they haven't shown, and here's what we really don't know yet from the science.
So we've embarked on a new program in Brookline called e-scooters. Have you heard about those?
Yes, I know. Yes, I do. Because I teach about motor vehicle safety. In my injury class, people do all sorts of interesting papers, and one of the students, and these are doctors who are like 31 years old, and they did a really good paper about e-scooters, what little evidence we have from the West Coast. And they seem to be incredibly dangerous.
They're incredibly dangerous.
Yes.
Can we repeat that?
Yeah, and particularly because not only are they dangerous in and of themselves, but people don't know what they're doing on them and haven't been trained on them and don't wear helmets, among other things.
Mm-hmm. But the same could have been said almost 100 years ago when the automobile was first introduced.
Yes, and the automobile was very dangerous.
And it continues to be.
It continues to be. But there have been great success stories in automobile safety, and so we've done much, much better through the years. It's one of the 10 major public health accomplishments of the 20th century, according to the Centers for Disease Control, is motor vehicle safety.
If you don't account for how much they pollute.
It's a separate question.
Supposedly, interestingly, when automobiles came on the scene about 100 years ago, they were considered great for public health because it got rid of all the horse droppings, which were really polluting all the cities. And so this was actually considered, this was going to be this wonderful thing, but unfortunately, the main, one of the big problems for motor vehicles through the years was the lead in the gasoline. And fortunately, we've gotten rid of that, but that has been an enormous problem. But yes, climate change is probably the 21st century major public health problem in the world.
So have you done any kind of studies on education for motor vehicle training? We have schools, et
Yes.
cetera, but we don't have that for bicyclists and
Yeah.
e-scooters in terms of learning the rules of the road, and
Right.
I'm concerned about that. And
Yeah,
I'm wondering,
so the evidence about education in a whole variety of areas is not that fantastic. Sometimes it does good, but I'm in a cohort where I went to high school in Illinois, and everybody in Illinois in high school had to take driver's ed. And the evidence is very strong that it didn't help reduce motor vehicle deaths at all, driver's education. And so the better way was always engineering changes to make the cars much safer, to make the roads much safer, to make the EMS system much better. And the one thing that, quote, education did, and it really wasn't education as so much as was changes in laws, was how drivers got much better was through changes in alcohol enforcement and alcohol laws and alcohol norms in driving. But yes, it would be nice to have at least a little education.
I'm curious about this, did the rate of infractions, ticketing for infractions, correlate in any way to?
A little bit. For alcohol, it does. In other countries, for example, you can stop people randomly and give them blood tests, and that seemed to have helped a lot. And we don't do that in the United States. But yeah, enforcement, major changes in enforcement have, if there are huge changes, you can see an effect in motor vehicle safety. So for example, when Japan went after drunk driving, they did an incredible job because basically they increased the fine by tenfold. And they made everybody in the cars, not only the driver, but all the passengers, liable.
Wow. Wow.
So, you mentioned the thing that really made cars safer was engineering.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas or thoughts on how scooters, which is what we're concerned about right now, can be engineered to be a little safer? I mean, there's some obvious things, but is that a hopeless cause, or is that
I'm not
something
sure. I mean, I haven't done, I haven't seen any of, there haven't been really any good studies yet about this. One of the things we do know is that little changes in engineering can matter a lot. For example, the collapsible steering column on cars made a tremendous difference. And we know that even for the incredibly dangerous all-terrain vehicles, making them, outlawing the three-wheeled all-terrain vehicle and only allowing four wheels was a very good change. But I don't know enough about the engineering of the scooters.
Have there been any studies of, I don't know, do any companies that you know of in terms of e-scooters actually provide effective education about how to ride them? Because I see kids wobbling down the street.
Right. I don't think they do yet. I think it's just, as far as I can tell, it's just been really rapid. We can make money, put these out there, and young people seem to like them.
What has your experience been with distracted driving, especially texting?
Yeah. So as I said, motor vehicle drivers have gotten much better about drunk driving. We've gotten much worse about distracted driving.
Yeah.
And so on my floor is a guy named Jay Winston, and he has been spending his last 20 years trying to figure out ways to get people to reduce this distracted driving with limited success. He's the one who did a great job in introducing the concept of the designated driver to the United States, and he did that working through Hollywood. Within a year, people in the United States went from about 10% knowing the concept of designated drivers to about 75-80%, just because at that time, there was like 3 major networks that everybody watched. And so all you had to do was get the writers who actually would love to do things in public health in Hollywood, because we've gone out and talked to them a number of times, but to make sure that in the soap operas people would talk about the designated driver, and to get them to make sure that in the soap operas everybody would buckle their seatbelts, and in the soap operas everybody would put on a helmet if they were going to be on a motorcycle. And that turned out to be very successful.
Have we seen a spike in accidents due to distracted driving?
Yes, we have.
So in the last 10 or 15 years, it looks like you've been the principal investigator or the co-investigator on a number of studies dealing with firearms
Yes,
and,
yes.
and I think suicides with firearms.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you see any applicability in your research to the town of Brookline and to the Advisory Committee on Public Health.
Well, one of the things that we've been doing, I think really successfully, is finding common ground with gun advocates. One place the evidence is just overwhelming about guns is that a gun in the home increases the risk for suicide for everybody in the home, and increases the risk by about 3-fold. Now, that doesn't mean if you have a gun, somebody in your home will die of a suicide, but what it means is that instead of having maybe 0.5% of a chance, you have a 1.5 or 2% chance, which is, in terms of public health, an enormous difference. Now we've gotten so that all the suicide experts, I think, in the United States understand the importance of suicide. It used to be of guns. It used to be that everybody sort of only looked at the why question. Why did the person commit suicide? How can we do something? We've been getting them also to look a little bit at the what was used, and it turns out that most of the great success stories in suicide prevention in the last 100 years have had nothing to do with changing mental health, nothing to do with changing mental health, everything to do with changing the access to the lethal means of suicide. So, and that's in England, people used to put their heads in stoves. I don't know if you, that's how Sylvia Plath died. It was a very easy way to die. It was painless, it was non-disfiguring. And then they changed the gas in the stove so that they were no longer lethal. And so people still put their heads in the oven, but then after 5 or 10 minutes, they just take their head out and go about their business. In Sri Lanka, which was the leading site of suicide in the world, there horribly people used to drink liquid pesticides. And still do, and then they just changed the toxicity of the pesticides and reduced suicides by about 60% in a very short time. So what we've done in the United States, even though only about 2% of people attempt suicide with a gun, half of people who die from suicide have used a gun. And so we've been working a lot with physicians all over the United States to make sure that they talk to people, to make sure they understand that if your kid's going through a bad period, that you should not keep your gun in your home for a while until things get well. Working with the gunners, what we've been able to do really successfully is get gun shops to start thinking about suicide, to get gun trainers for the first time ever to start thinking about suicide, with basically the message of, similar to Friends Don't Let Friends Drive Drunk, it's if your friend is going through a bad patch, it should be your responsibility to, quote, babysit the gun for a while. So if your friend is just getting a divorce and he's drinking and he's talking crazy, he should know it, you should know it, that you should hold his gun for a while. He gets a new girlfriend, things are better, he gets his gun back. And they love that, and it's we've worked really a lot in a lot of different places like Utah, like New Hampshire, where people are much more gun-friendly and more likely to be gun owners than Massachusetts. But still, even in Massachusetts, we do great in terms of suicide compared to the other states because we have such few guns, not because we have less mental health problems. But we could do even better.
Yes, Ms. Hamilton.
It strikes me that a lot of what you are describing is epidemiology,
Yes.
from what I understand.
Yes.
But you're trained in economics.
Yeah, my background's in economics, which means I understand about the cost of things, but mostly, only a small part of what I do now is straight economics.
Okay.
Most of what I do
So
is,
it's not my imagination.
no,
Okay.
that's correct.
Any other questions? So we're not deciding tonight, but in the next week or next meeting or so, we'll appoint people to the advisory committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then if I ever come back, I can tell you what they actually do.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Okay. What you actually do, you gave us like 30 pages of what you do. Okay, next, an update on the Brookline High School expansion project.
They're walking in as we speak. Hi. You're on. Just in time.
Oh, okay.
Take a while.
Do you want to take that now?
That's up to you.
Okay.
There's one, item 14, special town meeting, which is a quick item. I'd like to take that out of order so that,
Well, they have to set up anyway. So.
yeah, okay. So, Ms. Goff, tell us what we need to know.
So you should have a draft schedule in front of you. I have run the schedule by the moderator and the town clerk. I also solicit some feedback from Michael Burstein around some of the holidays that we need to be mindful of. So we're looking for the board to open the warrant on August 1st and close the warrant on August 29th, and that would line us up for a November town meeting that would be on November 19th. And so in the fall, we typically do 3 days in a row, so it would be the 19th, 20th, and 21st. I've also highlighted on this calendar some issues that we just need to be mindful of as the board schedules their own meetings. So we've got a few Jewish holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, that we just need to be aware as the board builds their own schedule.
I mean, Jewish holidays are very important, especially in Brooklyn, and any place. But, you know, we also have a rising Hindu and Muslim community here in Brookline. Did you sort of check those calendars too?
I can
Just so-
talk to Lloyd and see if
Okay.
there are dates that we need to be mindful of. I
Okay.
can certainly do that.
Yeah. Any questions? No? What do you need, a vote of approval?
I believe you need to vote to set the
Okay.
dates to open and close the warrant and to schedule town meeting for the 19th, 20th, and 21st.
Okay. So, question of calling the fall 2019 special town meeting and setting the opening and closing dates for the warrant. All in favor, Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. And, you know, subject to, of course, checking those other holidays. So,
Correct, yes. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, now the...
Ready?
Yep.
Okay. This is an update that was presented to the High School Expansion Advisory Committee last week. And the architects, Sam Lasky and Andy Jonick, are here to go through it. I'd like to just say, before they start, that some some very good news and some not so exciting news. The very good news is, as you all know, we passed the easement with the MBTA, which allows us to start construction. And that leads to the second piece of good news, which is that we have started at least the very preliminary setting up of fences and things of that nature around the high school, so that when school ends at the end of this week, next week we'll start to see the heavier activity. So we are on schedule, and that brings me to the not so great news, not so exciting, which is that we have discovered after our initial bid packages went out that we're estimating a $7.5 million or so problem in our budget. So we've been working on value engineering to see where we can shave off funds and not cut the program that we're all looking forward to so much. So I think we're being fairly successful with that. There's a number of small items, but they add up. And we are continuing to be vigilant about the budget and making sure that we don't go over. This is a very tough construction market. George Cole of the Building Commission, who's a co-chair of the Expansion Advisory Committee, tells me that the companies are very highly sought after. There's too much work for the number of companies there are, and that's why the prices have been going up, and there's been such acceleration. So, but with that, I'm going to turn to Sam Lasky and Andy Jonick to give us an update.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm Andy. This is Sam.
I'm Sam Lasky. Hi.
Thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening.
Could you talk directly into the mic?
Sure.
I think you could probably, yeah.
We don't realize until we see ourselves on TV that unless you're talking directly into the mic,
Okay.
you can't, you're not heard.
Excellent. So we wanted to give you an update. A couple of items are design related. One being the MBTA Plaza. We've been working with the town, with the MBTA to further develop the design of that plaza after quite a bit of feedback from the commuters. And Brinkton Path, this is an egress path that is behind the Cypress building, but that pathway offers access to the MBTA station off of Brinkton Road. And then finally, to touch on an update regarding the tap-in renovation and addition. Just a reminder of the overall scope of this project. Here you can see on the slide there are 5 elements shown. There are actually a few more than what's here. One of the 2 major pieces is the Cypress building, a 118,000 square foot new school for, it's really for the 9th grade. The second piece of this is the STEM wing, which is next to the main building on Greeno Street, right here. Third piece is the renovation to the tap-in gym. Also a renovation to the upper floor of the northern wing of the main high school building. That's where the existing science classrooms are today. Cypress Field is also part of this project. There are also, there's deferred maintenance items. I won't go into a lot of detail. And then the tap-in streetscape along here will be improved as part of this project. In terms of schedule, again, this is a very detailed slide here. However, these blue bars represent construction. Cypress and STEM wings, about a 2-year duration. And we are right at the beginning of construction after about 2 years of design work getting us to this point. And you can see here, this is over at the existing Roberts Wing. This is in a photo taken in the quad of the high school, so work has begun. On the STEM wing, in particular, there is some enabling work. The major utilities go from the UAB building across Tappan Street and into the Roberts Wing. So those utilities need to be moved out of the way in order to demolish the Roberts Wing and build the STEM wing.
This is one of Nancy's good news slides. Work is actually happening.
Yes. This is a simple slide just showing that the fences are indeed going up. That enabling work is happening this summer. And once that work is complete, at the end of August, demolition work will begin at the Roberts Wing, again, right on the corner of Greeno and Tappan Street. On the Cypress building, the construction fence will be going up in the next 2 weeks. And here, the majority of the work over the summer on the 111 Cypress property will be the demolition of the existing building and the preparation of below-grade foundations and structural support. So mini piles drilled along the south of the MBTA tracks, supportive excavation that will go in surrounding the site in order to build the foundations. Another component of this, which I did not mention earlier, is the MBTA platform. The platform at Brookline Hills will be reconstructed, and it will remain operational for the majority of construction. There are some short periods where it will be closed down to construct the overbuild over the tracks.
Weekend diversions, that kind of thing.
Yeah. This is a slide showing the existing condition, and very shortly the site will start to look like this, where you can see the supportive excavation here along Tappan where it meets Cypress, fencing on either side of the platform, and there will be underground utility work that will be ongoing. One of the key components to this phase is the lowering and removal, in some cases, of the catenary supports for the train. Those supports need to be lowered in order to construct the building over the tracks. So this is a key enabling project. And here you can see another view of the site. Skanska, the construction manager, their trailers will be located here. And during construction, this will be the MBTA parking lot.
And the ticket kiosk will be moved pretty early on to a new location to allow Skanska to get in where the existing kiosk is in order to deal with some of these underground utilities and running new electrical lines and all underground. So that'll be one of the first obvious changes if you're a commuter.
Let me just say one other thing about the MBTA, which is that it has made the project far more complex than it would have been otherwise, but I think the payoff will be huge. We are upgrading the station because the MBTA is going from a 2-car system to a 3-car system. So for those of us who've ever tried to get on a train and couldn't, we'll be grateful for the fact that there are 3 cars. They are also changing the grade of the platform so that there's a lot of work to do around that issue. And so it is quite complicated.
So to touch on the MBTA Plaza design, we've been working very closely with Parks and Open Space and their landscape architect, Weston and Sampson, who's redesigning Cypress Field. And we've been working with them not only on the plaza, but also the streetscape, so the design is unified and when completed, feels like one coherent design. But in particular, the MBTA Plaza, we've been working with them to make a very strong connection across Tappan Street, linking up with this pedestrian walkway through the park over to Davis. A couple key elements of that design. One is widening the crosswalk here. This allows for many commuters to come across towards the trains, but also when students want to go hang out in the field on a nice day, they just come down the stairs or down the elevator here into the plaza, and they can go right across Tappan Street into the field.
It's planned to be a raised crosswalk so that it'll be more, easier connection across and hopefully a safer one as well.
I had heard some critiques about the original plan that users that get on the T like in the morning weren't thrilled about the original design. How has that been addressed? What am I seeing before me, and what would I have seen?
This is the better version.
Okay, I assumed.
Yes. Yeah, they were reacting to a couple things. There was a smaller plaza. It was about half the size of this. There was some additional parking here. We also, in conversations with the T, there was a concern about students hanging out here and kind of spilling out onto the platform. So this blue line you see here was a fence that was much longer with a kind of very small point of entry. So we've worked with the T to open this up so commuters can walk directly across the plaza to the platform here. There's multiple points of entry. They've always been able to enter if you're coming up Tappan from the west along this pathway. There's a small point of access point here. Another comment was, provide additional bike storage. I think we've doubled the number of bikes from 16 to 32, plus about 8 or 9 blue bikes.
The blue bike station had been located further down Tappan Street. Obviously, it makes more sense here.
Yeah. Okay.
So those are some of the...
one of the things that that this has done is the not-so-exciting part that I described before, which is the cost and budget. And believe it or not, a plaza costs more than a parking lot. So the more we expand it out, the greater the cost. We're committed to trying to maintain this level of plaza. Whether we can go beyond it is really in doubt because of the budget issues. But I think we need to be mindful when people are asking us for changes. We have to now really look at very, very closely at the costs because of the budget issues.
Is that the materials, or is that just design work that costs more?
No, it's mostly the materials, I think. Parking lot is some asphalt and some paint, and a plaza is, trees and benches and nicer material so it costs more. Obviously, the design element is something as well, but I think mostly it's materials.
Okay.
And there has been the parking immediately adjacent, the left on the screen here, just to be clear about what Nancy's saying. Some of the people who had been giving feedback about the original design, we tried to be responsive to that, have said, could you eliminate additional parking and enlarge the plaza further? And as Nancy's pointing out,
there are trade-offs.
There are trade-offs. I mean, there are even, whatever the concerns vis-a-vis parking are, that's its own set of questions. And then there's also the cost ones, which are becoming more and more real on this project as more bids come in and we see what the market is saying.
And am I seeing two different parking lots here? One for the T, and then I assume one is ours?
Yes.
Yes. Go back one slide. So I'll walk over here. Sorry. That's for the T. Those are town. They'll be used by the school, and that's also town that will be used by the school. Is the current plan.
Okay.
So,
And-
this has been, I was part of the easement arrangement with the T.
And that MBTA, those spaces, they are maintained by the town, and the meters there, the town receives the revenue, but they're
But remember, in the
technically.
easements, we get the revenue from the meters, so we maintain them.
So we have a couple of renderings to show tonight. This is the view as you walk across Tappan Street towards Brookline Hills Station today, and in the future. You can see that much wider crosswalk. And there is, Nancy mentioned this earlier, there is a grade challenge. It's not just a flat plaza. The platform itself is being raised 8 inches higher from where it is today, and there's a relatively short distance from the existing sidewalk to that platform. So we have a series of 6-inch steps here to get you up that 18 inches. There's also an accessible path just to the left here around, and there's a slope over by the fence that brings you up right onto the platform. There will be trees interspersed throughout the plaza. These benches are actually one of the cost savings measures was to specify furniture rather than, built-in granite blocks or something like that. So this is bolt-down plaza furniture. And the plaza itself would be a kind of integrally colored concrete, and they, there's some expense here where there'd be granite facing on these steps, much like the street curbs along Tappan Street. So here you can see the overall aerial view of that wide pathway to the plaza. Again, the accessible path is around the side here and up a sloped walk. Each of these areas is accessible. Bike parking is located over here where bikers can, pull in through the parking lot. Another one of the comments was to make sure that, this sidewalk is continuous and is a continuous material, that it doesn't drop down and become asphalt, right at the intersection of Tappan. So we've worked to incorporate that among other comments into the design.
Yeah, we should say that with up to 700 students in the new 111 Cypress building, who every day will have reason to go back and forth to the main high school building or Tappan or UAB. Andy mentioned the Tappan streetscape improvement, and so that the genesis of that is to widen the sidewalk the entire length of Tappan from the entrance to the Cypress building all the way to Greeno. Places at 6 feet wide is just a kind of untenable dimension when there are potentially hundreds of kids moving back and forth at class break. So, kind of this whole ball got rolling, saying we've got to improve that sidewalk by widening it and then trying to make it a nicer place once we've done that.
Any other questions on the plaza? Okay. This is the known as the MBTA egress path off of the inbound platform. Here's the inbound platform. Part of this is under the building. This is required egress off of that platform, which does not exist today. It's a 6-foot pathway that makes its way behind the Cypress building. This is a service drive off of Brinkton. And we've had a lot of discussion with the neighbors about the precise position of this pathway. This is the location of the path that's currently in the easement agreement. Oops. So we're working on proposing a slight change to this pathway to make it more direct, recognizing that while it is for egress, people who learn, the shortcuts in the neighborhoods, much like you have elsewhere in Brookline, will presumably use this path to get to the inbound platform. And one of the key changes we're working on is subtle but important, establishing a landscape buffer here between the path and the drive and the neighbors.
The Brinken neighbors have been very understanding, let's say, of this building that will be, it's quite big and approximate to them, and so the most immediate abutters, have been very patient. We're trying to develop this design pathway in a way that will allow there to be landscape planting adjacent to their property, which is understandably important to them, and so that, this seems kind of like a minor thing, but it seems like the right thing to do to kind of keep working on this until we get this as good as it can be.
Is there an egress there right now?
No, there is no access from the platform back up. There's roughly a 4-foot grade change today between the two levels. There's no egress off of the platform there. So meeting new codes with this platform design requires an egress, and it's designed in such a way that it will also be, it's an accessible route. As an egress, it has to be accessible, but it's possible to get onto the platform, or will be possible to get onto the platform that way. So for people coming from, say, Route 9 or areas to the south like that, this would be quote unquote the shortest way to the T, and also an accessible route to the T that does not exist today.
A lot of the improvements that we are making in regards to the MBTA have to do with accessibility. I think it's an opportunity to improve the station considerably. So that's what's happening.
This was a little bit of a finding the right balance, because a lot of people were interested in having a route, including people on Brinton, having a route to the T station that was more direct and accessible. At the same time, how to design it in a way where it didn't become, lit like a football stadium in the middle of the night, and things like that. So there's a lot of finding the right balance going on here in this thing that seems sort of like a small piece of the puzzle has turned out to be a very important thing to try to get right.
Right. So Tappan, as Nancy mentioned, we've been working to look at areas of the project where we could save some money, and previously planned for, as part of the Tappan addition renovation, was a new entrance over here on the left, and a community room. So in conversations with the rec department, and thinking of ways to perhaps do this more efficiently, we've looked at other locations for that community room within the Tappan gymnasium building. Here you can see one room or a community room that's a little further into the building, another location which is right off of a lobby space. This is still an ongoing conversation, but the two images to the right, the major difference is the front of the building would remain similar to what it is today. There are the two canopies, there's two grand stairs that lead you up, and two entrances into the building. That would be the same on either side. We are studying the landscape with Parks and Open Spaces, because that's tied to this streetscape project. But in this particular design, the community room in this location, the rest of this plan is presently in the budget and accounted for. In this particular scheme, the dance studio, which exists right here, is being moved north in order to accommodate the fitness center, which on that scheme is located in that location, and that's required in order to achieve that square footage for the fitness center. But this, the scheme in the middle, possible design one, this would result in the most savings from the current estimate for this part of the project.
So we can say this, why are we talking about Tappan and saving money here? This is one of multiple things that Nancy was alluding to that are being looked at, and there are kind of smaller things across all of the projects that seem relatively straightforward to do, and there's some changes in the scope of the work on the third floor where the current science classrooms are to try to simplify the level of reworking there. So this is one of multiple ideas that are 6- and 7-figure ideas, but this change at Tappan is the single biggest dollar value item, and because it takes away this change to the front of the building that have been contemplated up to this point, and you would call it more significant in terms of what has been discussed to date, and so I think that's why Nancy wanted to make sure everyone knew about it.
So that this is the possible design one, we're calling it, shows the location of that community room, the dance studio. In this, at the moment, there's some very light touch upgrades to that space. That's actually a new studio as of, not sure how many years ago, but it's one of the relatively newer spaces in Tappan, and the fitness room is located there. The view from the entrance, the tail end of this arrow, towards the community room would look something like this, where you would see the community room could be glassy. In the distance there, fitness center right next to the entrance. This particular scheme would require the dance studio to be rebuilt and reconstructed further north to make room for the fitness center. And the community room would be right adjacent to that entrance. So in that case, the community room is here and the fitness center would be in that location. That seemingly simple switch is worth about $750,000. So, that the conversation with the rec department in terms of the final position of these elements is still ongoing.
Right.
Could you give us a sense of how long the presentation is going to continue? We're getting backed up on our hearings.
Okay. That's the last slide. So.
Oh, okay.
Good time.
We could be done unless you have a question.
Well, people have questions. The first slide showing Tappan Street didn't show parking. I assume that was not accurate.
Was it this?
No, it was before that.
Like the very first one?
Yep,
the model
very
photo?
first one.
It's
just a model.
It's there. It's
Okay.
a physical model. We don't have any cars located in there, but it is.
The parking, the angled parking is still there. There are a few spaces that it's probably shrinking by a little bit, but not very much.
Yeah, widening the crosswalk over there.
Could we get an estimate of how much it would cost to do the landscaping in lieu of like the parking in that little area?
At the plaza,
Yeah,
to expand the plaza.
Expanded the plaza?
yeah. I think it would be beneficial to at least show that it would cost more.
Yeah, we can certainly talk to the construction manager, Skanska, and have them develop a rough order of magnitude.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ray, did you have anything else to add? I just want you to know that Ray has succeeded in convincing the fire chief and the fire department that we don't need to sprinkle the pool. So we're not going to have sprinkler system over the pool.
Interesting.
That's going to save us some money.
Okay, next we have a public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question approving the application for the transfer of an all-kinds beverage license from 236 Brookline Corp. doing business as Central to Fat Duck LLC doing business as Mahainyam at 236. Was that bad pronunciation or good
It was
enough?
mine at first, too.
Okay. Okay, that's, this has 5 actions on our part. Can we do them all together? Yeah, okay. So,
List them all different, separate.
yeah. Pardon me?
I think you should just make sure you list them
Yeah,
separately.
yeah, I was about to do that. So, question of approving the application for the transfer of an all-kinds license, beverage license from 236 Brookline Corp., DBA Centro to Fat Duck LLB, DBA Mahayinam at 236 Washington Street, Brookline, Massachusetts. Also, at that same location, same company, application for alternate manager, manager of record, Eileen Bunak. Also, application for alternate manager, Shampoon Bunak. Also, application for a new common victualler for Fat Duck LLC, doing business as Mahiniyam.
You're going to have to help us with that pronunciation.
Mahaniom.
Mahaniyam, okay, Mahaniyam. And question of approving the application for a new entertainment license for Fat Duck LLC, doing business as Mahaniyam. Did I do that right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good enough. Same location. So those 5 items we're going to be voting on. Introduce yourself and tell us what you want us to do.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I am Shana Duff from the Law Office of Robert Allen, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Fat Duck LLC. With me this evening are Eileen Bunak and Champam Bunak. Eileen is one of the owners of the LLC, and she is the proposed manager of record. Champam is a proposed alternate manager. The application is for the space down on Washington Street at El Centro. They propose to transfer that license to their LLC and open a Thai restaurant. Mahaniom is popular old ancient Thai. It's ancient Thai for the word popular. So, they plan on doing some cosmetic changes to the interior. They plan on opening in hours that are similar to El Centro currently, while they are proposing to open until 11 on Monday through Thursday, 11:30 on Friday and Saturday, and 10 on Sunday. They might wish to expand those hours in the future, but they would like to be conservative now and come back for a change of hours should they see the demand for that. Eileen has management experience. She's over 21. She's crowd manager certified as citizen. She's been tips in person trained, and she's familiar with the rules and regulations of this board. Champin has a lot of experience with liquor, especially here in Brookline. He's previously worked at Golden Temple and Raw Thai. He currently works at Shoujo in Boston. He is over 21, crowd manager certified, in-person tip certified, and he's familiar with the rules and regulations of this board. And they've both met with Lieutenant Raskin ahead of this hearing. And if you would allow me, I would like Champin to come up and tell you a little bit more about the concept.
Sure.
So, thank you. So I would tell about the concept of the restaurant that I'm approaching to the Brookline area. So since Shana told us I used to work in the Brookline area for many years, and the concept of the restaurant, you probably see we have a lot of Thai restaurants in Brookline, many, but the way that I approach is we create all the Thai restaurant different style from we're gonna do the authentic Thai, all the dishes is different from like not like a regular pad thai or like fried rice. We're gonna bring all the street food that from Thailand. There's like a lot of Brookline resident never tried before, including all the I'm experienced in a craft cocktail. So I'm gonna combine those together. So make a Brookline resident is that enjoy my food and my cocktail. Yes.
All right. So, has the fire department provided approval yet? Not in our package.
It listed pending, but I don't see that we did receive anything. Did we receive anything supplemental to that? So if you
We'll do it
approve
conditional,
that, make
yeah.
it conditional on the fire department approval, please.
The applicants have been in communication with the fire department about coming to check out the space.
Yeah, we wanted to wait till we actually took over the space so we could come and see what's going on from that.
Any other questions from the board?
I know that both the manager of record and the alternate manager have experience with alcohol, but have they ever been the manager of record on another liquor license?
No, they have not.
Okay, so can you just tell me a little bit about what you learned from Lieutenant Raskin, what some of the Brookline regulations are around the service of alcohol?
I mean, he gave us a great overview, just about,
You can pull it towards you.
So he told us that, we need to have the proper signage up. I think it's 2 from the ABCC, and then all of the Brookline licenses. We need to have our binder, which includes our tip certifications, our employees, the roster for anyone that can serve alcohol, incident reports, things like that. Our policy, obviously, for serving alcohol. Just different forms of identification we can serve. So, yeah, he did give us a good overview and, great references from the
Perfect.
town. Yeah.
So I would urge you to have a copy of those regulations.
Oh,
and
yeah, absolutely.
Familiarize yourself with them
Mhm.
with some frequency. And then file this under the heading of fair warning. We do stings and we send in underage co-op students to try and trick you, and this board takes the service of alcohol seriously. So hopefully you will pass those stings and we won't see you back here for a disciplinary
We will,
hearing.
I promise.
Any other questions? Okay, so I move approval of, 1, transfer of all kinds beverage license, application for manager of record, Eileen Bonac, application for alternate manager, Chapon Bonac, application for new common victualler, and application for new entertainment license, all for Fat Duck LLC, doing business as Mahaniyam at 236 Washington Street, Brookline, Massachusetts. All in favor, Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Good luck.
Okay, finally, we're just 15 minutes behind time. Change of ownership and control of a retail marijuana license, medical marijuana license. This is a public hearing. By the way, did anyone have questions from the public on the previous application? I failed to ask. Okay, good. Okay. This is a public hearing. So, this is a
Thank you. Good evening. Jennifer DePazzo Gilbert here for Netta and Certera. With me this evening, I'd just like to introduce a familiar face here, Amanda Rosatano, the Managing Director at Netta. Also here this evening is Ryan LaRocca, an attorney and the Director of Regulatory Affairs for Certerra, and Cameron Champion, one of the Executive Directors for Certerra. Also here this evening is Jesse Alderman, a corporate attorney for Netta from Foley Hoag in Boston. On February 8th, an application requesting an approval for a change in ownership and control was submitted to the state's Cannabis Control Commission. As you may be aware, Netta holds 6 licenses in Massachusetts for their locations in Franklin, Northampton, and Brookline. And many of you came with me to tour both the Brookline facility and the Franklin facility, which is where they have their cultivation, manufacturing, and a research and development area there. The only local licenses are in Brookline, however, because Brookline has a stringent licensing and special permit process required to operate in this community. It also requires that the local board approve the change in ownership. Northampton and Franklin rely on the state CCC process and the vetting that goes through at the state. Over the last 5 months, all of the Certerra applicants underwent an extensive background check, query check, and were fully vetted through the state process. On June 13th, last week, I attended the CCC's public hearing at the State House relative to this application for change in ownership, and a report was provided to the Cannabis Control Commission by the state investigator, which found that all of the Certerra applicants were suitable. At the hearing, the CCC voted unanimously to approve the change in ownership, subject to 7 conditions. I provided a copy of that approval and all of the conditions imposed by the state to the board, along with the application and background information which was submitted to the CCC. Certerra Wellness was established in 2014 and is a leading cannabis health and wellness company with over 20 medical dispensaries in Florida, as well as operations in Nevada and Texas. Certerra's Chief Executive Officer is William Wrigley, Jr., and I did reach out and have a discussion with Certerra's General Counsel, Sarah Loya, who is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and she confirmed that in those 5 years, Certerra has never had a license suspension or revocation in any of those facilities. The companies will work together to leverage the excellence of Netta's research and development, their extraordinary service, premium products, and will continue to focus their area and concern for medical patients. Amanda and Netta's management team will remain in place, and Netta operations will continue, as is in all local levels. The last time Amanda and I were here before this board was to present the adult use opening plan that was approved by Chief Lipson. The opening went extremely well, and Netta has and will continue to respond to any particular neighborhood concerns as they arise in a proactive way, while continuing to work cooperatively with the Brookline Police and other local officials. Communications continue with Lieutenant Raskin and various neighbors on any operational concerns that have arisen since the adult use opening. Netta prides itself on customer service and community relationships. Netta now employs 700 people company-wide. I'm happy to report that business is doing well, and as Netta has had positive customer reviews and support from the Brookline community overall. Since opening as a medical dispensary and now with the adult use in full swing, Netta has made community impact payments as required by Brookline's host community agreement at the maximum level allowed by state law. And we estimate that payments right now total about $1 million. As you know, those impact fees are intended to be used to address any community impacts that the business causes. And certainly Netta and Certerra's values with respect to community relationships have been proven where they operate in those 3 states now and will continue on, and they are very much aligned. I would like to turn it over to Amanda Rositano to speak specifically a little bit more about those values and the current operations, and then the team is here to answer any questions you may have. Thanks, Amanda.
Good evening. We're really excited to be here tonight and hopefully move forward with what is truly a mutually beneficial partnership that NETA is about to engage in with Certera. This is a partnership that's really based on aligned values and our desire to really continue with what we've done here in Massachusetts and really broaden our reach and our operational excellence throughout the country, really. As has been discussed, you'll continue to see mine and other familiar faces representing NETA as we continue with our operations under the same leadership team and under the same principles that NETA has built its reputation on here in Brookline and across the state. We're about 3 months in now from our adult use opening, and I am happy to report that, things have been running very smoothly. As Jennifer mentioned, we think the launch went incredibly well. We're really pleased with how things have been going. Needless to say, we've been busy. I think that's a fair statement. But we feel that traffic and parking, the things that have been sort of the key concerns, have been well managed. And, specifically, we're really thrilled about the fact that we've been able to contain our lines to our own property. I know that we had a licensing condition that allowed us to queue on the sidewalk in a contained, organized way, but we really acknowledged the fact that that's not what the community wanted. So we took additional steps to figure out a way to not do that, and we're happy to say that we have not had to have any of our patrons lining up on the public way, and we've contained that to our own parking lot, which has been working out really well. Importantly, I think one of the key things that I'm proud of is that we've been able to meet our commitment to our patients. Our patients are our number one priority. They will continue to be our number one priority. From day one, we have not asked a medical patient to wait in line outside with our adult use customers. They're brought directly into the facility. They have their own specific service areas, their own reserved inventory, and the feedback that we've gotten from our patients is that they're very appreciative that we've been able to maintain that same level of service and care for them, which is incredibly important to us. We've gotten tremendous positive feedback from many of our neighboring establishments who've benefited from the additional business that has come into the village. Prior to the opening, we did do a sort of a walking tour of the community, and we provided direct contact information to our neighbors, residents and businesses alike, to make sure that they had a direct line of contact to us if they had any concerns. And that's been our mantra right along, is that if you have an issue, we want to hear about it and we want to take steps to address it. So we've been working very closely with the police department, with Lieutenant Raskin, with other town departments as concerns do come up, to make sure that we're putting initiatives and efforts in place to address those things to the best of our ability. For example, one of the things that we've recently launched is our NETA Green Team, where we have a regular schedule where our staff is actually hitting the streets on NETA's dime and picking up trash, not just around our facility, which we're responsible for, but across streets all over the village right now. And we're taking feedback from neighbors as to areas that might need more attention. And so that's something that we're really excited to continue with. I think, we're just genuinely proud of the relationships that we've built with the town, with the police department, and we really look forward to continuing that collaborative approach as we close this deal with Certera. So thank you very much.
Just if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the great work that NETA has done in satisfying the town's rules as well as the concerns of neighbors. I've gotten, not a lot, but a few comments from people who said that when, for example, there were trash in their area, you came out and dealt with it immediately. And that's a small thing, but that's creates a lot of good good feeling among the community. So I applaud that. So the Massachusetts statute recognizes the disparate impact on minority communities of the criminalization, the history of criminalizing marijuana, and it addresses that history by, providing provisions that encourage minority ownership or ownership by people in, I forgot the exact terminology they use, but heavily impacted communities. Gives them a little bit of a leg up in terms of ownership of marijuana establishments. This may not be relevant to this application or our consideration, but I'm just curious as to the ownership of Soterra and the entire operation as it relates to minority owners. This is not a condition for our approval, but it's something that I want to know, and so give the message that that is an important issue even for us here in Brookline.
Sure. So diversity, inclusion, and social equity are values that NETA holds very dear. As you mentioned, this is part of our regulatory statutory obligation to have programs in place to positively impact what they call communities of disproportionate impact. So NETA takes several steps. We have many initiatives in place to contribute towards those programs. For example, right now we are working on our social equity plans that specifically aim to work with. The state has certain classes of applicants for licenses, social equity applicants, diversity applicants, that NETA is implementing programs to support those applicants through mentorship, through grant programs and other initiatives to recognize the fact that there are communities that have been disproportionately impacted by the drug war. Another initiative that we take is through targeted recruiting to make sure that we are really focusing in on providing job opportunities for individuals in communities of disproportionate impact. So we have a number of programs in place around both social equity and diversity that we will continue on under this acquisition. NETA will carry on with those programs and build on them even further. Does that answer your question?
Well, partially. I mean, that's important information to present to us. But I'm thinking more in terms of the ownership of Soterra. Are there minority owners of the company?
I'll turn this to the Soterra team.
Okay, good.
Sorry, I was not anticipating this question exactly. I'm unaware of the diversity status of some of the other owners in Soterra, just my own. I am a combat veteran as well. I served in the Air Force and in Iraq, so I can speak to that. I can also speak to Soterra's commitment to diversity programs in other states as well. So you guys at NETA are doing a great job here in Massachusetts, but in other states we do have similar diversity programs, and we're doing events to serve people who have been disproportionately impacted, help them expunge minor marijuana possession charges off of their records so that they can become more hireable. So we are doing that across the board.
Would it be useful, or would it be possible for you to just provide the board with information both on those programs, but also ownership of Soterra?
Really quickly, too, I don't have our diversity numbers with me today, but we do have great diversity at Soterra across our hiring program. And one program we just launched is the employee stock purchase program. So after the employees have been there for a year, they're able to buy stock in the company at a discounted rate.
Just
The answer to that question is yes, we can absolutely provide the board with the diversity programs that Amanda mentioned.
Great.
No problem.
Thank you.
That over 50% of Soterra's employees are women, and we're almost 10% veterans at Soterra.
I'll say in my review of the documents that we were given under race or ethnicity, all of the The principal owners were listed as white. There was one person that did not answer that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be all there right in the application.
So, I mean, my purpose in asking the question was not to question, I mean, we know Netta, we love Netta, but just to give the message that that is an important issue. And, you know, I think in Boston that has become sort of a flashpoint issue among certain people, and broader issues of, you know, so-called outside corporate takeovers of local establishments is an issue that also needs to be addressed, and the two, I think, go together. So my purpose in asking that question was to give a message.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay.
If I can add one more thing, is just that that Netta, this is for our guests from Florida and elsewhere, but that Netta is located very close as well to some of our public housing. And you know, I'd love to learn more currently about what Netta is perhaps sort of contributing in the way of support for folks who live in public housing in that area, or perhaps going forward in the future, what the new Netta might be able to contribute in that way.
Sure.
So one of the other issues that's gotten attention locally is some companies in Massachusetts that are controlling more than the legally required or legally allowed number of establishments. So I'll ask Mr. Pazzo-Gilbert this, and she can dole it out as she sees fit. I assume that the CCC did this review, and their approval indicates that Soterra is compliant with the local laws here in Massachusetts, but I'll ask you, is Soterra compliant with the local laws in Massachusetts?
Yeah, absolutely, and, you know, there was a spotlight series of articles by the Boston Globe, and I'm happy to say that Netta was not included in that review at all, and that's because they comply with the laws, and so does Soterra, so. And also, you know, the application, that issue came prior to Soterra's recent approval, and had it been an issue, it certainly would have been highlighted, and it was not. Jesse, do you want to add?
Yeah, I can just add, for the benefit of the board, the change of ownership application process at the CCC now requires an actual forensic accounting of this issue. So the ownership of both entities was examined anew. All of their contracts were disclosed. There are none because both of these groups are in full compliance. And on top of that, all of the new owners of Soterra actually had to swear under pains and penalties of perjury in affidavits that they had no interest in any other marijuana establishment licenses in Massachusetts.
So, Amanda, you mentioned green, and that word always perks me up. So, Brookline has a program, which you may know about as a business in Brookline, called Brookline Green. And we are really, really trying to get our consumers, people in Brookline who have electric accounts. It's an account where, for Soterra's benefit, where people are able to purchase more renewable energy than the state offers in its normal grid. You don't have to put solar panels on the roof or go to that expense if you can, and many of us have slate roofs, so you can't do that. So this is a way we've aggregated all the accounts in the town to encourage renewable energy. And businesses can participate just as well as households. If you have an Eversource account, which you probably do, you just need to have the account number. You can go to brooklinegreen.com. It'll take you to the town webpage. It's an official program by the town. It's not a scam. You know, I know people, a lot of letters come from, you know, all these different companies. Jennifer's smiling. She must get them all the time, right? This is not that. We're using the highest class of renewable energy RECs that are available. They are local. It's like buying local vegetables or local cannabis, if you will. It's through Green Energy Consumers Alliance. So I'm hoping that you will look at brooklinegreen.com with your little bill right in your hand and opt up to 100%.
Yeah, so a couple of things I can tell you is, first off, I just did this at my own house, not in Brookline, but a similar renewable energy initiative. My previous role was actually as staff director for the Committee on Global Warming and Climate Change at the State House, so this is also an issue that's near and dear to my heart. So NETA would be absolutely willing to take a look at that and see if it's something that we can do, and I would be very much in favor of that.
And if you can get the Preservation Commission to allow solar panels on that bank, let us know.
I know that the Preservation Commission has allowed solar panels in some local historic districts. But this does save you the expense right away, because you just pay for it monthly, month after month. And it's true, you don't make back the money in 5 years or whatever it is, but on the other hand, you're not making a commitment and locking yourself in to a system that might change, and you might have to upgrade. So
I think it's great, and I'm happy to look into it. I actually appreciate you bringing it to my attention.
Any other questions? This is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment, ask a question? Okay, please come on up. Introduce yourself to the TV audience.
Hi, my name is Beth Cates, and I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 9. And I'm fairly familiar with the cannabis industry throughout the country. And I want to say that I've been very happy with NETA. I think they've been a very good neighbor. And one of the things that has been really lovely about NETA is that they are a local Massachusetts business. And I have to say that I'm pretty saddened to see them being purchased by an out-of-state, multi-state corporation that's funded by venture capital, that's out of state. And you may have figured out from your dealings with the Cannabis Control Commission that Massachusetts is different. Massachusetts is different from Nevada, it's different from Florida, it's different from Texas. And things that may fly in those states don't fly in Massachusetts, and they don't fly in Brookline. And I've really valued those aspects of NETA that have made it a really great place to purchase from and to work with, and the whole vibe of the place and the employees that work there. They're all lovely. They've done some really nice community things, like on 420 they had, they invited local food vendors to come, and they had free food, and it was just a lovely, really community event. And those are things that we really appreciate. And I'm very happy that Mr. Green and others have brought up some of the same things that concerned me, as of, in terms of social equity issues, and also, I can't remember what the other one was that Ben brought up, but that was also an issue of mine. But I'm concerned about how things will be going forward. And I read an article in the Miami Herald that Certera was being cited by the state of Florida for some violations. And the Cannabis Control Commission in Massachusetts will be at least, if not more stringent. But those are all real concerns for me, because the cannabis industry in other states like Florida, Texas, and Nevada is a lot sketchier than it is here. So I would not like to see our local NETA that we love so much change and get sketchy. Thank you.
We appreciate that comment. Certera, NETA will have an ongoing intimate relationship with the town of Brookline. And I guess the message that Ms. Cates as well as this board is giving, is that Soterra should not restrict the ability of NETA to, or the local operation to continue the type of good relationships and cooperative relationships with our town and its residents that we have enjoyed since their founding, or since their initial establishment. That's a message for the entire corporate structure of Soterra.
We agree.
Okay, good, thanks. Any other questions? Okay. So we, of course, have no reason to question the wisdom of the Cannabis Control Commission in approving your application. So I move approval of the, let's see, change of ownership and control of retail marijuana licensing, medical marijuana license from New England Treatment Access, LLC, to, how does it go, Soterra?
It's not actually a transfer, it's just a change of ownership.
Okay. How do we, I'll just read what's here. Question of possible vote to approve the change of ownership and control request from New England Treatment Access LLC with regard to the marijuana retail license and a medical marijuana treatment center license at 160 Washington Street. Sorry for messing that up. Any rate, all in favor, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask before you take that vote, I failed to ask you, Jennifer, is it advisable that the board would also make these 7 conditions part of their approval, or is that redundant?
It's redundant, but you certainly can add it to the vote, you know, including the conditions that are listed on this, on the state vote. That's absolutely fine.
Okay.
That's up to the board. It is redundant because those have to be met anyway, but
Yeah.
certainly in
Yeah, so I suggest we do it, make the approval conditional on continuing compliance with the conditions in the Cannabis Control Commission letter of approval. So, all in favor, Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Ms. Heller?
Aye.
Ms. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Fernandez?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay. And that concludes our meeting. Move to adjourn. Anyone opposed? No? We're adjourned.
Thank you for this very